Well, he's just back from the Socialist Convention in Atlanta. I hope he didn't have to walk back.
Next on AM 1480 WLEA, The Newsmaker Show. Here's Brian O'Neill.
You probably stood out in the crowd there, Doc.
With my MAGA hat?
Yeah.
Yeah, well.
Sean Hannity the other night did an intense 40-minute, really back-and-forth interview with New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio.
Right.
You know, which got me thinking, what a loss for New York City that it was not to have Senator Kathy Young in the Senate anymore, because she used to do that grilling thing with Mayor Bill de Blasio when they would come up for what Albany insiders call Tin Cup Day, when the politicians ask for funding.
Right. Ask for more of our money. Yes.
So that got me thinking about the new state senator who took a place, Chautauqua County executive, the former Chautauqua County executive, George Burello.
Well, he's still a county executive over there, I think, until unless he's resigned because...
Well, he gave an interview to ChautauquaDaily.com, and I wanted to ask you this.
Well, go right ahead.
Okay, here's what he said, and it's about the relationship between New York City and upstate. It says, quote, and this is George Burello talking, "There are people out there who say we need to separate New York City from the rest of the state, and I understand that sentiment and appreciate that sentiment, but I don't think it's practical to think that way, at least in the short term. So we have to play the cards we've been dealt, and right now it's trying to work with this Goliath, which is New York City. Not only is it a huge driver of policy in Albany, it's so diametrically opposed most of the time to the needs, desires, and values of upstate New York."
Yes.
Okay, when you think of Kathy Young in New York City, and you think of the new State Senator George Burello and his statements on New York City, is there any difference there? Are they on the same page? What do you think?
Well, I think Senator Young would have agreed generally with Mr. Burello, but the fact is, I think the Republicans did all right in terms of funding from landlords and apartment owners and things of that sort in New York City, because they were very helpful in terms of letting them control their rents, things of that sort. And what's happened is the Democrats now in control of the state Senate have really turned a whole leaf toward the tenants and the renters. And so I think I don't know if the money flow is going to be coming out of New York City to the Senate Republicans as it was in the past. I think you can almost certainly say it will not. So there, I guess, in a way, Mr. Burello's correct. Now we got a real antipathy between New York City and upstate. But the basic, talking to some fellow Republicans in the last few days, nobody believes that the Republicans are going to gain control of the state Senate.
Ever again?
Well, that's hard to say. I mean, ever again is, speaking in terms of perpetuity, that's probably a little more than we can do in politics these days. But the Republicans have to gain 9 seats in order to regain control. And on top of that, you have a situation like you have in Erie County, where Mr. Jacobs is saying he will challenge Congressman Collins for that congressional seat. And Mr. Collins, as you know, is under indictment. And Jacobs is a very interesting fellow. He's a Republican senator from Erie County, from an inner city district, which is 2/3 Democrat. And nonetheless, as a Republican, he has won that seat, and he's very well funded. But if he leaves that seat, then the Republicans, they're going to have a hard time retaining that seat. So now you're talking 10 seats. And then if you look at Senator Akshar, the wonderful man from over in Broome County, I can't believe that he's not going to get not only a primary challenge, but the Democrats will put somebody up against him too if he wins the primary. So you could have as many as 11 seats there that are really on the edge, and it costs the Republicans a ton of money to try to regain those seats and hold on to those seats. And I think the money's just not there. People are not going to throw money away, and frankly, that's pretty much what they'd be doing here in the state Republican Senate races. So it's a pretty grim show. And the point is, this is the one chance they have, because after the 2020 census, the legislature will redraw the districts, and I can assure you, if the Democrats are in control of the state Senate, they'll draw those districts so the Republicans will never get a majority again. In the,
what about congressional districts?
Well, congressional districts are a little different. The last time around, the Assembly and the state Senate went back and forth on it. Now, you got to remember, at that time, state Senate's controlled by the Republicans. So you can see where there's a difference here on how these lines are going to be drawn. Not that the state legislature cares much one way or another about congressional districts. They're concerned about protecting their own districts first and foremost. But the result was that a federal judge came in and basically drew the congressional lines for New York State, and she did a pretty good job, actually, of keeping them equal and reasonably equal in population and reasonably contiguous, and I mean, it wasn't too bad. Now, this time around, I believe we have some sort of state commission that is going to be involved in drawing district lines. I don't know if they get involved with Assembly and Senate lines, but and some states have gone to commissions that are pretty much impartial, and I think that's a good thing to do. But I don't think the one in New York State is going to be all that impartial. I think some of the state legislators have quite a bit of influence on there, as it was spelled out. But the fact is, New York State, well, I don't know if the fact is, but the prognostications are that New York State is going to lose at least 2 congressional seats. So that means all the district seats have to be redrawn. And one person who's going to be in a lot of trouble when they redraw those congressional district lines is who?
Don't tell me Congressman Tom Reed.
No.
Who?
Someone from the far end of the state there, Brian.
AOC?
Her district, I think, will disappear.
Really?
Yeah, and she knows it. And
is that why she's been talking a little bit about running for U.S. Senate?
Indeed. She's changing her staff. She's actually, I think, spending time in her district, and so that district is going to go, and if it'll be redrawn.
Whose seat will she run for, Gillibrand's or Schumer's?
Schumer's.
That's what I think I read that she said she was thinking of.
Yeah. Well, Schumer's will be up, I think. I think Gillibrand just won a year or so ago. So, well, and that would be interesting. It'd be kind of fun to watch that. I think that's one of the reasons why Governor Cuomo very much would like to get rid of these third parties. Because I can see where she would go rushing to the Working Families Party pretty fast.
But aren't the third parties helpful to Cuomo's re-election, him personally?
Not particularly. I mean, you saw what happened the last time. I mean, who's the lady that ran third party? Didn't she run
Zephyr Teachout?
Yeah. No, I think Cuomo's view is, and I think it's legitimate, is that the Democrats put up their candidate. If anybody else wants to put up a candidate, they're free to do that, but those votes are not going to count for anything but the line on which they were cast. So I think there's some impetus there, and I think Cuomo wants to clear the decks on this situation.
And so he doesn't, I guess, come to think of it, from talking to Joseph Belinsky, the Steuben County GOP chair,
yes,
he seemed to think that the Larry Sharp numbers did not affect Mark, whatever his name was, the
Molinaro?
Republican that ran last time.
Molinaro ran last
Mark
time.
Molinaro.
Yeah, I don't know.
He said it did not.
I'm sorry?
He said that the Sharp campaign did not hurt Mark Molinaro.
Yeah, I don't know. I will say this. Mr. Simpolinski's command of election data is really pretty impressive. He's able to whip off a lot of data on district populations, turnout, and that sort of thing. So if that's what he said, I guess I'd go with that. Yeah.
Sure. Speaking of Joe Simpolinski, who used to work for Corning Republican Congressman Tom Reed, Congressman Reed has been tweeting a little bit lately about China and the U.S.
I see. He's a tweeter, too?
Yes. Reed says that that China is a currency manipulator.
Yeah. Well, I guess they've thought that they've been manipulating the currency for many years. And again, Trump brings it right to a head here and confronts them with that. As you know, they've allowed the yuan there, if that's the term we use for their, to depreciate against the U.S. dollar, so that the dollar is much stronger, and U.S. products in China are going to be a lot more expensive, but in terms of Chinese currency. But of course, Chinese products then sell a lot quicker in terms of U.S. currency. So the argument is, and I don't know, if our audience is interested one way or another here, but the argument is Trump puts on 10% tariff. The Chinese let their currency drop significantly. That offsets that 10% tariff because it still makes their goods cheaper. And I think that's what they're doing. But I don't know how far they can go with that. Of course, it is a type of currency manipulation. And so I don't know, how much cheaper they can let the yuan go against the U.S. dollar, because that's going to have effects, I think, on financial arrangements and things within China as well, and with other countries. So it's interesting. There's no question about it. And I guess my feeling would be, I think if I'd like to see Trump say, well, the Chinese come out all right on this. Now let's close up our negotiations here and go home. In other words, give the Chinese a chance to save some face and get back to some more brisk trade situations. But the Chinese, I think, in addition to allowing their currency to weaken against the dollar, have said they will no longer buy any agricultural products from the United States. And that hurts. No two ways about that. But on the other hand, where are they going to get their agricultural products? Well, there's some countries that can provide them, but many of these countries have problems with weather and other situations that come up fairly frequently. So we'll just have to see if they're going to be able to maintain that.
Dr. Bob, I brought up Congressman Tom Reed a little bit ago. Just curious, and it's not local to this part of the district. In fact, it could not be farther. But Congressman Tom Reed's had a little bit of a dispute with Governor Andrew Cuomo about I-90, the thruway over Chautauqua County Way. Have you? And according to Reed, because of a dispute that the governor's office has had with the Seneca Nation, the governor has not gotten certain work done on I-90 in Chautauqua County. Is that of any interest to you, conversationally?
Well, that's I-90 comes down from the north of Chautauqua County there. I-86 goes across the south, but Reed's talking about I-90 now. He's not talking about I-86. That's correct, right?
Yes.
Because, as you know, we had a heck of a problem there. I think it was under Cuomo's father, with the Seneca over in Cattaraugus and some of those areas along I-86. But so the whole idea is that Cuomo's just letting it go to potholes and things of that sort?
Yes, that's what Congressman Tom Reed and Assemblyman Joe Giglio and Assemblyman Eddie Goodell. The list goes on and on. George Burello. They've been complaining about it.
Yeah. Well, it could be. I don't know. I-90, is that a state? That is a state, yeah. Thruway, yeah. Yeah, I don't know.
They're complaining that the governor's been postponing work on this because of a dispute, some sort of disagreement with the Seneca Nation.
Yeah, well, those, as you know, those things have popped up fairly frequently. The interesting aspect of that is that Cuomo is pouring all kinds of money into Erie County in terms of the Buffalo Billion and all kinds of other redevelopment efforts there. Mm-hmm. So you'd think he'd want I-90 to be fairly smooth sailing there that would be from the east, or from the west, I guess, into Erie County. But I guess we'll just have to watch it. The thing is, of course, the Seneca pour a ton of money into these political campaigns. And I assume a lot of these people are reacting to that as well. I'm not sure.
All right, we're going to take a quick break. We will be right back with Dr. Robert A. Heineman. Stay there.
You take flooring for granted, don't you? I mean, if you think about how much wear and tear you put that floor through, why would you even think about buying a cheap floor when you need one? Buy quality flooring from Mullen Factory Direct Floor Covering in Almond. Mullins buys in bulk, and that means you save money on quality flooring. They even offer 0% interest for qualified buyers. Shop over 400,000 square feet of major name brand in-stock flooring. And get it installed now. And no box store wait. Mullen Factory Direct Floor Covering in Almond. Let them floor you.
Back with Dr. Robert Heineman, Alfred University Political Science Emeritus. We have not brought up the mass shootings yet. Dr. Bob, did you have any thoughts there?
No, I don't have much to say on that. I think, well, the whole thing is it's pretty sad. I just hope, and of course, as you know, New York now has signed legislation not allowing teachers or principals or anybody of that sort to carry guns into the schools. And I just don't know how that's going to work out. Obviously, people can't just bring guns into the school. I think they'd have to have training of some sort or another. But it leaves, I just not certain how that's going to, I just hope nothing happens here or anywhere else. But unfortunately, given these kinds of situations with the school systems across the country opening up here in 2 or 3 weeks, it's something we're going to have to be prepared for.
The the aftermath, as far as most media coverage goes, as far as the mainstream media, is just attack Trump. Nothing new there.
That's the sad part of all this. And again, I think Trump is prepared to do something. I don't think, again, the NRA can raise all the criticism it wants, but I don't think the NRA has quite the clout that it had 8-10 years ago, and because they've got their own problems. But I think if Trump thought he could get something through Congress, he would certainly push a red flag legislation, which, by the way, I have no problem with in New York State either. Putting in effect the whole red flag idea is probably not a bad idea. And the idea would be, I suppose that would be deeper background checks and things of that sort would be tied to that. But I'll tell you, when you get something into Congress, in the House and in the Senate, trying to get something through in a reasonable fashion is, incredibly hard to do, especially when you've got one side blaming everything on Trump and the other side basically under threat from the NRA and some of the gun organizations. I mean, the thing gets pretty complicated.
The accusations of white nationalism and whatnot is never ending. Go to the Drudge Report. It says top 2020 Dems call Trump white supremacist. Then you click on the link and it takes you to a picture of Beto O'Rourke.
Yeah.
Who is he a top Democrat? Really?
I don't think so. No, I again, that's the sad thing about all this, throwing this term racist around wherever you can. The fact is racism is a much, much smaller part of the American scene these days, much, much smaller. And this white nationalist thing, as you know, Tucker Carlson got himself in all kinds of criticism because I think he said it basically was a myth. And I think there's a lot of truth to what Tucker Carlson said, trying to build up this idea that this is huge racist, terrorist, right-wing operation out there. I think that's just make-believe. Not that there aren't people out there that, and I suppose a lot of this ties into the social media and what's going on these blogs and web pages and things of that sort. But frankly, FBI statistics and such show that the level of violent crime in this country has gone down, I think, 49% in the last 15, 20 years. So the idea that we're getting into more dangerous situations, I'm not certain that's at all plausible.
What will the effect be of the media and the top Democrat candidates, not just guilt-tripping Trump himself, but his supporters, which you've seen, if you watch MSNBC or CNN, they're constantly guilt-tripping Trump and the supporters, calling them racists.
Yeah, I know.
What will the effect of that be?
Well, I think it wears off after a while. You can only do that so much. And obviously they're trying very hard to get some sort of African-American constituency out there, which, they have a pretty good-sized area of support there in the minority community. But I think the concern is that the economic picture has been so positive for a lot of these minorities that Trump is going to cut into that. And so now you got to make him out as some sort of ogre there in the racist area. And I just find it very, very hard to believe that Trump is in any way, sense, or a racist. Now, this is not to say he's a pleasant fellow. Don't get me wrong there, but
obnoxious New Yorker, but not a racist.
I guess you could say that. Yeah, of course, there's a lot of obnoxious New Yorkers out there, Brian. Yes, who aren't racist. Yeah, that's the whole thing's pretty sad, and I just hope. People, I guess you got to be aware and you've got to be alert to dangers in crowds and things of that sort. There's no question about that. I was kind of, Texas is an open carry state. You can buy a gun and carry it, and I was just surprised that in the Walmart situation, nobody shot this guy. And did he end up getting shot, or is he in custody now?
He's in custody.
Yeah. I'm surprised that there wasn't anybody in the store there. Maybe there was and didn't get a chance.
The guy in Dayton, Ohio got shot.
Yeah. By the police, though, right?
Right.
Yeah.
I know what you're saying, though. A lot of the times when there's been shootings in Texas, some Texan will just pull out a gun because they got that conceal and carry thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess it just didn't happen. And again, I think didn't Trump may say something about we got to outlaw weapons of war. These guns fire off such a rapid pace that you don't have much time to react. It's just pretty tragic, that's for sure.
Well, with that, Dr. Bob, we've got to get going and make room for Brian Kilmeade, but thank you so much for joining us.
Well, we got to be a little more upbeat the next time around, Brian. Yeah.
All righty.